Today for Devotions with Daniela, we are reading Generation Hope, How Inclusive Economics Can Help Us All Thrive by Arun J. Katakam. This is part 1 of the Scale of the Problem. I'm reading through this for my own practice right now. If you want to join me, you can get copies attached here. Chapter 1, Crisis and Crossroads. Humanity has shown amazing resilience in the past decade, from individuals withstanding personal loss to countries surviving economic shocks. Most importantly, this horrible time has shown us that it is possible to make wholesale changes to our lives, and change is not easy. They say never let a good crisis go to waste, and I believe that is true in our post-pandemic era as much as it was when the Second World War laid the foundations for a host of social and economic reforms. Now we have the opportunity to change the world for the better. Will we take it? Shakespeare said that some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. And that turns out to be true about innovation as well. One need look no further than the innovative responses society had to the pandemic that was thrust upon us. Sectors from education to healthcare and food service to filmmaking all scrambled to innovate their operations for a world in lockdown, fueling a rapid adoption of digital technologies in which even the baby boomer generation was forced to get digitally savvy. Without the lockdowns, they may have never had an incentive to make the leap to adopt technology beyond the basics. Interestingly enough, most, if not all, of the digital technology that became commonplace after the start of national lockdowns had been available for at least 5 years prior to 2020. However, it took the pandemic to scale adoption from a very small percentage of people to the mass market. No one would have thought the change that took place during the pandemic would have been possible. It may have taken another 10 years or more to reach these levels of digital adoption. It's a natural human instinct to resist change, mostly due to fear of the unknown. The pandemic gave us two choices: adapt or face the consequences. In this case, potentially death. When you have to choose between the two, survival instincts kick in. And for most people, resistance to change disappears. Our need to survive eclipses our fear of the unknown. Pre-pandemic, who would have imagined the need for, or possibility of, restricting people's movements in democratic countries? Yet after COVID-19's rampage through northern Italy, it was clear that the burden on countries' healthcare infrastructure needed to be managed. And until a vaccine could be developed, social distancing was the only way to do that. In March and April of 2020, as country after country went into national lockdown, by and large, people accepted the restrictions placed on them for the greater good of society. Not really in America. Most people were confined to their homes for large parts of the year. Every one of us experienced some version of these restrictions, demonstrating to ourselves and each other the sacrifices that people will make to survive. With lockdowns came a major economic impact. If the economy shrinks by 0.25% for 2 quarters, we're in a recession, and all financial markets start teetering. During the first year of the pandemic, the bottom fell out. This is not to say that the pandemic was a good thing or that it didn't matter. Of course it did. 1.6 billion people lost their jobs, with approximately 400 million of those jobs not expected to come back. 200 million people were pushed into poverty, and the poor and lower middle class were disproportionately affected. Supply chain disruptions led to major logistical problems, which further compounded the economic woes of those less fortunate. According to the International Monetary Fund, the pandemic was the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, 1929. And of course, we might be having something similar again. Yet, because of our resilience and ability to adapt, the economy is still working. National lockdowns also meant remote working became the new normal after gaining momentum for 5 years prior to 2020. That meant a certain part of the workforce already knew how to do it, but the majority had to figure it out under challenging circumstances. Outside of the pandemic, remote working does create opportunities for those who cannot relocate. It helps provide flexibility to those who find it difficult to be at an office the whole day, including parents who need to do the school run or tend to appointments. During the work from home period of 20 to 2021, people and businesses got a taste of both potential working arrangements and what that might look like for both parties. Some businesses thrived in this model, giving up their office space and permanently shifting to being remote first. A few pioneering companies said their employees can work from home indefinitely, and the majority have considered some form of hybrid model. Although, of course, again, they're trying to walk that back now. But many businesses quietly learned which of their white-collar jobs can be done remotely, and chances are they will ultimately offshore many of them. One study found that 65% of Americans expect that robots and computers will do much of the work currently done by humans within 50 years. I also think part of that is the apocalypticizing, especially of Americans, fantasizing about the apocalypse. Oh, the robots are coming. We can forget about robots for a minute because many jobs are being replaced by other humans in countries with lower cost bases. This has already been happening consistently for the past 2 decades, and the pandemic has further accelerated the pace. And of course, part of what the current administration is trying to do is make enough wealth disparity and enough of a peasant class, essentially, that Americans will be willing to do those jobs again, back at home. Costs aren't the only concern. After initial mandates to a full return to the office were met with stiff resistance and resignations, leaders realized it is virtually impossible to get everyone back 5 days a week, especially those folks they hired remotely during the pandemic. Hybrid situations aim for 2 to 3 days a week, which is still a tough ask for some people. It fascinates me because working from home isn't all roses. Yet for most, myself included, there is a preference to work from home. What gives us the right to work from home when it was absolutely normal to work 5 days a week at the office? I'm not sure. Leaders who live in the past and are paranoid about productivity are asking the same question. But it seems like after we let the genie out of the bottle, we can't put it back. And organizational psychology research, of which I am an organizational psychologist, tells us that even when people go into the office, they only work about 4 hours a day, similarly to what they do from home. Some of the biggest businesses in the world show their true colors in how they dealt with their return to office policies, and they lost a lot of talent to those who are offering permanent remote roles, forming one part of the Great Resignation and quiet quitting. Businesses who understand this shift in employee preferences will continue to attract the best talent, but the change has to be more than just allowing employees to work remotely. When it comes to culture, the expression corridors of power highlights the fact that location really matters. The most important decisions are made at headquarters and only by those who have access to decision makers. We have all had experiences where occasionally colleagues meeting in person have forgotten about those online, especially when it is just one person joining remotely. Being in the building provides access to those physically present in a way that people working remotely just don't have. Missing the side chats that happen at the water cooler or when meetings are concluded and people are walking back to their desks are other dynamics that disadvantage remote workers. This is a culture-based dynamic that points to deeper reform that is needed, as I'm sure many has discovered after switching companies to one that has kept up with the times, only to find that they are back to square one. I started working from home in 2016 when I joined an all-remote company. It was great, but only because I was able to go out too. I could have coffee with former colleagues and meet people for work. I joined a co-working community on a pay-as-you-use plan, which allowed me to pop in whenever I wanted to. When lockdowns happened, I was stuck at home with my 4 white walls, and it wasn't so great anymore. I missed the social interactions and a change of scenery. Parents with young kids working from home because of COVID found it incredibly hard to juggle work and family life. Yes, we did. Even though the kids have gone back to school now, lockdown was its own trauma, with the entire family working or studying from home. My wife now works from home permanently as well, and that's another dynamic to contend with. Previously, when you were at work, you were at work, and at home, you were home. While you might have received the odd call or text asking about something, there was a separation. Working from home provides easier access for those at home, a spouse, parents, family members, or kids to make a request. Home-related interactions inevitably interfere with your work and vice versa in ways that previously didn't happen unless you were a workaholic. Some sort of hybrid is certainly the way forward, which will look different for different companies based on their needs and their culture.